seems like I was on mute, but hello everybody. How's everybody doing? And it's been a long time that since we have streamed, so here we are. And this is an English stream, and because of what's been happening, everybody knows. I don't think I have to spell it out, but yes, you know it, and probably you saw the thumbnail. And I decided to make a cheeky one this time, and I'm not quite sure if everybody got what it represented. But if not, that's perfectly fine. If you did, then well, good. And what's been happening? I think what's happening is that all of us are busy with our, usual life, and then we are not finding enough time to stream, and that's why today we said, okay, let's do a stream, whatever come, basically, whatever the case may be, and whoever's there. So I'm right now waiting for Kayali, who's going to join in a couple of minutes, and Martin might join. We're not sure as of now, but yeah. So the topic is, I think we're gonna cover. We're gonna review conversation between. I'm not quite sure the guy is atheist or not, but it's a conversation between Mohammed Hijab, because Mohammed Hijab is right now. In hot seat, basically, so to speak, and there are some issues that's been going on. There are lots of talks going on as to what's happening, and so we didn't want to cover that kind of we didn't want to touch on that conversation, and the reason being, I'm not privy to what's happening. I can't attest or side with one side or the other. I mean, if you listen to one side, you'll think, okay, what's the evidence? And if you listen to the other side, which is Mohammed Hijab's side, which he hasn't spelled out as yet, I think, and then you'll have again issues with credibility as to how do you ascertain whether that's what he's saying is true or not. So I'm being a skeptic over there in reaching to any kind of a conclusion over there, basically. In any case, before we jump into what we're going to review, what I'll ask you is to like, subscribe, and share, and post your thoughts in the comment sections as we are going through the review. If you think that some point we have missed covering, you can highlight that, or highlight your thoughts on our arguments, attacking our arguments, or bolstering our arguments, and so on. But once the stream is finished, and if you're listening after the stream is finished, you can do the same exactly in the comment section. But like, subscribe, and share as much as you can. And if you want to support us, if you want to see us more often doing these kind of streams, or even Hindi Urdu streams, then if you can support us, support us on Patreon, buy me a coffee, or via super chats, whatever, super stickers and whatnot, memberships and stuff, right? So that out of the way, I think we'll jump into the video and see what's being talked about. So this is a conversation between, I don't know what place is this. I think it's Speaker's Corner. But this young guy, I don't know if I have seen him before. Maybe I've seen him before, but I can't recall. So he seems like he knows philosophy, at least to some level, and probably he has studied it as well. And so I don't know at what point the conversation started. Seems like the conversation may have started a little bit earlier than where the recording point is, or starting point of this video clip is. But let's listen to it.
And he's got many books where you can refer to. The very small books, I would actually recommend them. Obviously, he's a good person to refer to because he was a mathematician.
Not quite sure if the volume is way too low. Can anybody confirm whether they can hear the video and the voice level is good or bad? Anybody listening, can you tell us whether the voice level is good or bad in the audience? I'll assume it's you can hear the audio. All right, Callie has joined us. Welcome, Callie. How are you doing? I think your DP is missing, by the way, Callie.
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
You're audible. You're audible. Pretty good, basically. Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
but your DP is missing. I think you.
Yeah, yeah. Let me set that. Yeah. Let me set that up. Yeah,
In the meanwhile, is it okay if I run the audio?
yeah. Go ahead.
All right.
They say that he invented calculus, but at the same time, he was a philosopher. So what his idea was in terms.
Or all right, right off the bat, what you hear from these, Dawah guys, basically most of them, be it Mohammed Hijab, Subur Ahmed, Mansoor, Hashim, you name it, basically. Whoever's there, these Dawah guys just name drop, basically, right? Whether it be some, some scientist, some evolutionary biologist. I don't know who that guy was. Subur named him like 45 to 50 times in his opening speech, basically, against Professor Dave. And yeah, I mean, these guys just name drop. Now here he did, I don't know whose name he was talking about, but he's probably talking about some medieval, quote unquote Islamic golden era age philosopher and probably a polymath or whatever scientist, right? And he's saying he invented calculus, and that's what they say. Who say? Tell us who say, and who are you talking about, basically, right? And I'm pretty sure he has taken the name somewhere earlier, basically, right? Maybe he's talking about Tusi, right? I remember some of the things that are being talked about Al Tusi, right? And maybe I'm wrong though, but I think talking about calculus and inventing calculus are two very different things, basically, right? Somebody could say, I mean, did he come up with the limits and all those things that Newton did to, bring calculus to forefront of the, you know, mathematical arena, to the applied mathematics or applied physics arena? Did they do it? If not, then they were just talking something that they probably didn't understand. It was not calculus, basically, right? People have been using fractions and all these calculations for ages, since the times of Pythagoras, pretty much, right? That was some 300, 400 BC, pretty much, right? So, yeah, I don't really understand these guys name dropping and then claiming everything is being, invented by, you know, scientists of the Islamic Golden Age. I think another one of this example is someone the other day claimed that evolution was talked about by some philosopher, some guy. I don't know who was that. Ah, God. All right, I'm saying Martin. Sorry, Kelly. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, great.
Sorry, I joined a bit late, so yeah, I might not have that much of a context. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No,
I'll.
nothing great has happened. That's why I took. I mean, I started early so that nobody has to wait for too long, because I knew that it'll take a little bit of time for you to join, and I started and covered the points that were not of that much, essence, basically, right? He's just. I mean, the whole clip started him talking about some philosopher, medieval age scientist and philosopher. Maybe he's talking about 2C, L2C, but I'm not too sure, right? And he's saying he invented the calculus, and I'm just attacking him for that, basically, right? Because Subur, Hijab, Hamza, Mansoor,
Yeah,
all these guys have this,
I can read that.
tendency of
And
just
what is
name
that
dropping it.
proof?
Yeah, reference.
I
Give
mean,
me
the
a
point is
reference.
that
Give me
what is
his
that?
work. Give
Let's
me
say,
the book,
let's say they
basically.
did. No, no, let's say they did. Okay. What does that prove? Aren't
Yeah,
these the guys
exactly. I
who
mean,
aren't
that's perfect.
aren't aren't these the people who today claim that the scientific progress of the West isn't proof of their truth or proof of their success or whatever you'd call it, right? These are the guys who
Exactly,
say
exactly,
that you shouldn't okay, you can use their scientific development, you can look up to that, but that doesn't prove that their systems, their economic systems, their social systems are superior to ours. So what that means is, okay, there was I think this happens in almost every big uh, every big large enough civilization that was there at that time, right? So basically, at the time when things were being discovered, and there was some sort of mindset which allowed the government allowed this sort of allowed and encouraged this sort of discoveries, I guess. So I think this would happen in any such society or
exactly,
civilization.
exactly. And
And yeah,
majority,
and yeah, majority of that
majority of
happened in
it
the
was yeah, huh?
Abbasids time.
Yeah,
The
Abbasid,
majority
and
of
the
that happened in the Abbasids.
one particular caliph
Mm,
was, who
exactly,
kickstarted it, and he was Al
exactly.
Mamun, basically, right? He was
Right,
the Abbasid who kickstarted this whole,
right,
scientific revolution kind of a thing within the
right.
Islamic. And where did it come from? Basically, it came from
Exactly.
Cordoba, basically, Spain. It
Mm.
wasn't even
Yeah, exactly.
Saudi
I
Arabia,
mean, yeah, I
right?
mean, when they were
And
conquering all of these
this is a
areas,
place which was already
yeah,
working on problem
exactly,
solving, basically. And the next big place was Persia. Persia was known for its polymaths even before that, and they were good at translating Greek works or even Indian works, basically, right? So
exactly.
I mean, but your argument is well enough. Even if it all happened, so what? Right?
When when
Okay,
you
let's.
when you
Yeah,
do not consider the progress, scientific progress or scientific development in the West to be a proof of their truthfulness or to be the proof of the superiority of their systems, then I guess it doesn't matter whether there was a time when there was a scientific revolution or scientific discoveries were happening in the Islamic civilization. Fine, they were happening, but what does that prove? And
yeah. I mean,
secondly,
I think the point they
uh,
want
didn't
to.
didn't the Islamic the didn't the Islamic rule or Muslim rule continued till the last century? In fact, even today, what stopped
Exactly.
it?
Yeah, what stopped it,
Why
basically, right?
is there? Yeah, what stopped it? So I mean, if you say that there was an continuous Islamic rule for 1400 years, what caused it to stop? Now, if you are claiming that in a specific time these scientific developments happened, therefore this shows that Islam is encouraging of that, one could argue, well, later on this didn't happen. In fact, prior to that and after that period, this didn't happen. Should I conclude from that that Islam does not encourage it? So I mean,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
it's pointless. So basically,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm missing the point that he's trying to
No,
make.
you're
Unless,
absolutely right. You're absolutely
yeah,
right. That's the point they want to hit
yeah,
home, that somehow
mhm,
Islam encourages inquiry, and
right.
uh, you
But
think through all these things, and all those things, basically.
yeah, I'll just give them one. I think it can make sense in one context. If this is just a counter to someone raising an objection against Islam, that Islam is anti-science, it doesn't encourage inquiry or scientific discoveries, then they could raise this point that no, in Islamic there was a certain period within the Islamic era of Islamic civilizations.
In
When there were a lot of
Abbasid
Islamic,
time,
yeah,
basically,
when
right?
all of
Yeah.
these discoveries happened, so you cannot say that Islam does not encourage it. I mean, okay.
Right.
I mean, I guess it is a fair enough point. You could say that it allows it, and so I guess yeah, that's okay. In that context, I think their point would be valid
Valid.
somewhat.
Yeah.
So I
It
guess
will be
that's
a
okay.
valid point
Valid
in that sense,
response.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
but as a standalone argument, I mean, I don't know what they're trying to prove with that.
Right, right, right. All right, let's listen further.
Terms of truth statements or propositional statements and or mathematical statements was that the truth of the proposition was contained within that proposition. So mathematics, a lot of it is actually tautological. Equations are tautological.
So I don't agree that that mathematical claims are primarily tautological. In fact, I actually think, Gödel gave reasons to think that's not true, right? So insofar as Gödel showed, no system of axioms
Can you pause this?
can be both complete and that it describes.
Yeah, I wanted to
I think,
move ahead and
yeah,
see what he's going to talk about. Does he
but
give an example of it, or? But yeah, I mean, this is a very bold statement with
no, but I
very
think
little.
I was going to ask you about this. Do you agree with that? You know what? I think I don't know if you'd call it tautological, because I'm not very good with jargon. But what I think mathematics is, it's just definitional truths. It's just like saying, just like there's no value in saying, or no truth value, or no, I don't know whether you'd call it truth value or not. I mean, the statement is true that a bachelor is not married, right? Now, but there's no information in it, right? Because you're just giving another name to a bachelor, or maybe to a unmarried person. You have given it another name, correct? So you're
Yeah,
defining the
but
word.
see, I'll
So basically, it's a
how I'll
definitional truth. Yeah,
yeah, it is, but somehow I'll see it this way. A lot of mathematics, when you try to arrive at these QEDs basically, right, or hence proved kind of
yeah.
propositions, right? What you are trying to see is that something that you have not seen before. Can you find what it reduces to and what you know, basically, right? See,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
example,
I mean,
you see two
yeah.
trees, and you have a definition of four trees. Then you combine them and see, oh yes, I see the four as well, right? You see two just far distant and two very close by, but that's the combination. Can you see them to be equivalent to something else, basically? So even though it is tautological in some sense it is more of a finding it out, basically, right? Putting it and on test, basically, right? So
I think,
there are different schools, by the way. There are different schools,
yeah,
right?
I
There is a
understand that.
logical positivist school. There is a formalist school. There is an empiricist school, who says that mathematical truths are only representation of what we see in the real world, right? And it's a way to define those in those terms, basically. So I think it's far from very simple. It's just not black and white. I don't think there's a one answer to it, at least in my opinion, basically.
Yeah. I think what you observe is that there are some. I mean, you observe multiplicity, or maybe, I mean, you see, when you observe things, you see, you're able to observe how many of those things are. That's fine. What I'm saying is that the mathematical proofs themselves, the equations, all of these things. I mean, I'm not a mathematician, and I understand, and what you just said, that there are multiple schools of thought on this topic. But I think that they are definitional statements. Like 2 + 2 is equals to 4. That's just a definition. You call 2 + 2. You have decided to call it 4. That's what it is. You have just simplified, just to sort of simplify it. You have said, okay, instead of saying 2 + 2, we'll say it 4. And 2
Yeah,
itself is also is also equal to 1 + 1.
you
So
can
instead
say
of
it's
saying 1 + 1,
reductionism in a
1
sense.
and 1 and 1, exactly,
Yeah,
you have just
it's
given
a
it a simpler name, so that, I think it's a definition.
yeah, it's a
You
definition,
decided to
right?
call, yeah. When there is 1 and 1 and 1 and 1, you've decided to call it 4. That's what it
So
is.
I mean, another example that I'll take, right? It's under root of 2, right? What is under root of 2, right?
Hmm.
And if somebody says that under root of 2 is equals to 1.41, whatever, right? 1.41 and
Yeah.
something, something, something,
One
something,
four,
right?
1 4 1 4, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some number, right? Then you would say, okay, it's tautology, but then you arrived at that tautology in the sense that definition through certain rationale or certain mathematical rules, basically certain axioms, right? You started off with certain axioms, and you said under root is what? Under root of something is the square of something else, basically, right? So 1.41 multiplied by 1.41 whatever is equals to uh, this guy squared, basically, right? and that's the under
Mm-hmm.
root of basically, right, one of those
Mm-hmm.
things. And so this is, in a sense, it seems like it's definitionally true, and which might be, but then you have to at least arrive to those things by way of reasoning. And that's why when you do a kind of a proof in mathematics, you arrive at hence proof. Basically, it's a definitional truth, right? You'll write 2 plus 2 equals to 4, but you'll arrive by way of certain axioms, right? 1 plus 1 equals to 2, right? So 1 plus 1 equals to 2, and 1 plus 1 equals to 2. That's why 2 plus 2 equals to
1
1 plus
plus
1
1 is
plus
equals
1
to
plus 1.
2. It,
Sorry,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
1 plus 1 equals 2 is it's. I don't think you need observation for that. You just need to understand the concept that there can be one and another. I mean, there can be a thing and then another of that same kind of thing. And you say, okay, well, if there is more than one kind of the same kind of thing, I'll call it, well, it's two of those things. So I think it's definitional, but yeah, I think let's not go into further detail about it. Maybe the audience might get bored because it's a bit more. It's
Yeah,
a bit
yeah,
too
I think
philosophical.
somebody will avoid. But yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I agree with that. But there are different schools, right? I
I
mean, there
agree.
are
Yeah,
logical
yeah.
positivists, there are formalists, basically, and there are Platonists as well, basically, right? Who think that mathematical truths are, you know, have their own existence beyond this, material existence, basically, right?
Yeah, I guess are they called mathematical realists? I don't know. I'm very bad with jargons. I don't know
No,
what
no,
they call.
these are. I mean, these the numbers and all these abstract things have an existence independent of human thought, outside the human mind or any mind, basically, right? Did I make that clear, or
Yeah,
it's still, yeah?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No, no,
Okay.
I get your point. I'm saying what that school of thought is called. So I thought I was saying that are they called mathematical realists? I don't know if that's what their name is.
Maybe. I mean, they're
Yeah,
called Platonists, but in that sense, probably you're right. Maybe they
yeah.
could also be
But I'm
called
not good
realists.
with jargon, so I have no idea
No, no, they could. I
if
mean,
that's correct
what
or
you're
not.
saying is
Yeah.
right. I mean, in another sense, probably they could be called realists as well. Basically, I mean, definitionally, if you think through that, right? Anyway, move ahead. Right? Otherwise, we'll keep boring with
True mathematical
mathematics, right?
facts and not contain any contradictions. Well, then what that means is that no system of axioms can by itself exhaust all the relevant mathematical facts. But I mean
Now let's go back to the point of tautology, right?
so okay
So 2 plus 2 equals 4, or 5 plus 5 equals 10. And the equal sign in the middle indicates equality between the two propositions, right? Which means that, on the one hand, 5 plus 5 is equivalent to, it's another way of expressing the idea of 10. So according to this idea, if we're talking about, if mathematics is, for the most part, tautological, then they're truisms. So in other words, it's not...
The view that mathematical statements are just basically tautologies has fallen largely out of favor among philosophers of mathematics as a result of Gödel's incompleteness theorem. But, I mean, the point I'm making, it won't hinge on any particularly controversial views in philosophy of math. So, for example, do you think, there are various facts about propositions. So the following, here's a fact. Either 2 plus 2 equals 4, or pigs can fly. That fact depends on the truth that 2 plus 2 equals 4. But nonetheless, it's not caused by that truth.
So what's the point you're making?
The point is, there are a whole range of perfectly intelligible instances whereby things depend on, whereby necessary facts depend on.
I'm not quite sure I understood the point by this atheist or whoever that guy is. Is he a theist or atheist? Let's listen to it again. Could you understand that point, Kelly?
No, honestly, no, I couldn't. Is the audio clear to you? I don't know. Maybe it's not
No,
that
it's
clear to
a
me.
low quality audio. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's
I'm
a
not
low
quite
quality
sure what
audio.
I can do, and that's why I
Yeah.
asked the. Can someone in the audio say whether
Can you hear me clearly though?
I can hear you perfectly fine? April, can you hear us fine, and can you hear the audio fine? By the way, audio from the video clip, can you hear it fine? If you can just comment. So what he's saying, this example that he gives.
Fact depends on the truth, or so views in philosophy of math. So, for example.
So he's giving an example. Listen to it carefully, Kelly.
do think, there are various facts about propositions. So the following, here's a fact. Either 2 plus 2 equals 4, or pigs can fly. That fact depends on the truth that that 2 plus 2 equals 4. But nonetheless, it's not caused by that truth.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. He's saying here's a fact: either 2 plus 2 equals to 4, or pigs can fly. I think it's not a fact. It's a proposition. If you want to say it's a proposition, yes, it's a proposition. And how is that proposition going to be true? I think the both of the conjuncts have to be true. Basically, it has two conjuncts. 2 plus 2 equals to 4 is a conjunct, and the other conjunct is pigs can fly, right? So if 2 plus 2 equals to 4, which if we as we understand the mathematics, 2 plus 2 equals to 4. So this is truth claim, basically, right? So true proposition, and pigs can fly. If that becomes true, then the whole proposition is true. I'm not quite sure what point this guy wants to make, basically. Maybe I'm missing some point. Yeah. Did you understand that? I think that's how
No,
I'm
I have no
assessing
idea
that.
what he's trying to say. I have no idea what he's trying to say. I guess
Yeah,
let's move
I
ahead.
mean,
I'm not sure even
I'm
if that's
missing his
him.
deeper point as well. I'm missing his
I'm
deeper.
not sure if that's
I
even
can
important.
understand the proposition. I think first thing first, he's calling it a fact, which I'm not quite sure I understand. Why is he calling it a fact? It's a proposition he's putting forth, and he's saying P1 and P2. P1 is 2 plus 2 equals to 4, and P2 is pigs can fly. Basically, it's a conjunction, basic conjunction, right? Not quite sure. Anyway, we'll skip it.
So what's the point you're making?
The point is, there are a whole range of perfectly intelligible instances whereby things depend on, whereby necessary facts depend on other necessary facts. If there are a whole range of things like that,
So
what's wrong with the Trinity?
here's the thing. I don't know if you've read Edward Fazer. He's quite an interesting figure. He's got some interesting things. One thing I like from him.
All right, let me try to steelman his point, basically. Okay, I promise you I won't spend too much time on it. I think what he wanted to say here is 2 plus 2 equals to 4 implies pigs can fly, right? I think if this proposition has to be true, then 2 plus 2 equals to 4 has to be true. I think that's what he wants to say. Maybe. Okay, only he can tell whether I'm right or not. Anyways, moving on.
I'm still not sure, so I don't know. I don't want to delve on this point.
Yeah. I think just listening to him, it just occurred to me that's what he's saying. I think he's saying this proposition is true. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe somebody smarter than us will tell.
Is what he talks about, the principle of proportionate causality, okay? And that's something Muslim scholars have been saying for a long time as well, which is something bereft of equality cannot produce it, yeah? Something bereft of equality cannot produce it. Now,
what do you mean by bereft of equality?
something doesn't have something, cannot give it. Yes? Something that does not have something cannot give it, yeah? This is the principle of proportionate causality. Now, what I'm saying is that, for me, the best explanation for all things related to necessary facts is actually a necessary existence, and I'll tell you why. The idea of existence, whether you're an essentialist, an Aristotelian essentialist or not, the idea of existence presupposes every other idea. It's the mother category of all ideas. And so if there is such a thing as a necessary existence, then the existence of necessary facts like 2 plus 2 equals 4, or whatever it may be, I would say the best explanation for that is actually the necessary existence. That they are produced by the necessary existence.
Okay, well, I think that's perfectly fine. In fact, that would be incompatible with what I said. It would, in fact, bolster the point that there are necessary facts where those necessary facts depend.
I think Hijab just contradicted himself, right? So he said existence of necessary things, and he said 2 plus 2 equals to 4, right? I'll just back it up, right? You listen to it again, right?
An Aristotelian essentialist or not, the idea of existence presupposes every other idea. It's the mother category of all ideas. And so if there is such a thing as a necessary existence, then the existence of necessary facts like 2 plus 2 equals 4, or whatever it may be, I would say the best explanation for that is actually the necessary.
So he says he's already talking about necessary facts. So necessary facts are necessary facts, right? But he's saying necessary existence has to exist to have the existence of necessary facts. You see the problem? Maybe
Uh,
maybe he's using
I
necessary
think,
facts and necessary existence in two different, uh, you
and
know.
I think there should. No, no, I think that's fair enough. If you use the necessary fact and necessary existence, because that they're not necessarily the same things.
No, but then necessary. I mean, unless until you presuppose that necessary existence has to have a necessary, cannot include a necessary fact, right?
No, no. What do you mean by that? Can you repeat? Necessary existence must not
I mean,
have that necessary
if I
fact.
if I say
I think what he's trying to argue for is, what his argument is this. He's saying, because and he summer. I think his gist was what he mentioned earlier, just before this point, which was something bereft of a quality cannot bestow that quality to another. I think that's how he worded it, or maybe something.
right,
Meaning,
right,
if
yeah, yeah,
something does not have a quality, that thing cannot give that quality to another, or cannot cause that quality into another thing. So that was his primary point, and what he's trying to argue for is this. I think, and he started discussing about existence. So I think what his point is this. He's trying to say that existence is the most primary form of, what you'd say, thing, or most essential concept, right? Existence, because existence is there. I think nobody should dispute that.
no,
So
but
what he's saying,
a fact is an existence, right? It may be in a
a
metaphysical
fact.
realm. A fact is
No, no,
an
no. The
existence,
fact.
right?
No,
I
but
mean,
that doesn't matter.
abstract.
He's
A
he's
fact
not
is an
denied it, right?
abstract
But
object,
he's
right?
not denied it. So what's the point then? He's not denied
No,
that
no.
point.
So hear me out, right? Uh, what do you mean by necessary existence, right? You have just defined it that way, right?
A necessary existence is
What's the
a
difference
necessary
between
existence is the ultimate
what?
existence,
Yeah, but that's
the base form of
definitionally
existence,
true,
basically.
right? That's the definitionally true. Now, hear me out.
Uh-huh.
What is different between a necessary fact and a necessary existence?
Okay, there's a difference.
Given you have nothing to
I'll tell you.
compare with, yeah.
I'll tell you. There's a difference. A
Hmm.
necessary existence is the existence which does not rely on anything else, which is necessary in its own self, meaning that exists without relying, or without depending for its existence on another, right? And
Hmm.
for they argue for that on the basis of the impossibility of infinite regress. That is their general points that they often argue for, right?
Hmm.
The impossibility of infinite Through the impossibility of infinite regress, they argue that there must be a necessary existence which is eternal, um, or beyond time, which exists beyond time, and that existence is necessary. Now, a necessary fact is quite different. The existence of necessary existence is a fact according to Muhammad Hijab, but a necessary fact is different from necessary existence, because, for example, if A necessitates B, let's say, understand what I'm trying to say. If A necessitates B, and then if A, therefore B. So you understand this logic, right? So
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
say
This is yeah, yeah.
there's a
This is
cause and effect. Yeah.
right, right.
So now now if you argue that A must exist, or A necessarily, or A exists, then you'll have to say that, okay, it's a necessary fact that B exists, but B is not a necessary existence. That is what he would argue. It's a necessary fact that B exists because A exists, and because this relation exists where if A then B, and that means that existence of B given A is a necessary fact. However, it is B is not necessary existence. A
Yeah,
is a
I mean,
necessary
I
existence.
see I see the modus ponens that's being used over there, right?
Right.
But this
Right.
is, I think this is arbitrary, basically, because I mean, how do you disallow
Hmm.
an abstract object not to be a necessary being? I
No, no,
mean,
it is
in this case, I'm saying
okay. Okay.
any mathematical truth could be a necessary existence as well, and that's
Again,
my
but that
contention. That's my
okay.
contention,
But then you're
not the modus
arguing.
ponens, basically, right?
No, but then you're arguing that these necessary facts these have, you're arguing that they necessarily exist. You're sort of
I'm saying
asserting that
if
they
you allow
exist.
for a necessary existence of a necessary being, I think they should,
Hmm.
even the necessary facts should fall in that category, because at this point, uh,
Hmm.
without any other information, both should be in the same category.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by those facts. And
I mean, if you define it so that the necessary facts has to rely on something, then of course you have already changed the
because
definition,
the
right?
the kind of the when you're saying that metaphysic, or these necessary facts exist, um, I mean, I understand what you're trying to say, but and you're saying that those as a concept or an
Yeah, I mean,
idea,
see
they
see it this
exist.
way. See it this way. Some form of wave function exists, basically, right? I
Hmm.
mean, is
Yeah.
a fact, basically, right? That gives rise to. I mean, even it doesn't have to exist, because as soon as I say exist, then I'll fall into the existence Volahon, basically, right? But
Hmm.
I'm saying a quantum wave function is a fact, basically, and
Okay.
that fact gives rise to the universes, right?
That
Possible?
fact gives rise to what?
Universe
No,
like
I
ours,
I would
basically.
disagree with that. The fact doesn't give rise to anything. I disagree with that. The wave function might give rise to this universe, but the fact wouldn't. Fact is just, fact. If you think about it, fact is basically is when I think about it, I think fact is, um,
Yeah, I mean, I see your
in
point.
many
A fact
ways,
is a
uh,
statement
you know,
of truth
it's
for
sort of,
something. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And for something, and for a truth statement to exist, there should be someone actually having
I
that
think I
knowledge
I,
of
I I
truth,
think
which means, which
there is
implies a
an
conscious being should
epistemic
exist.
problem, basically, right? I mean, there is an epistemic problem.
Exactly.
I think our epistemic
For
problem is
example,
that
A
we
exists.
we
Let's say,
no,
yeah,
I'm thinking of a universe where a fact comes before the existence, basically, and that's a possibility.
exactly.
I'm
And I
thinking.
disagree with that. And I don't agree with that. At least I don't.
I mean, in our
Because when you
universe,
say
we think.
facts,
I think.
yeah,
Let's suppose there is a
you know what that
universe
would,
where time goes in the
some,
other direction, right?
mm-hmm, yeah,
Let's
yeah,
let's suppose there is a universe where the suppose our universe, all of a sudden the time line changes and goes the other way, right?
mm-hmm,
A cup fallen on the floor that's been broken, all of a sudden collects and becomes a whole
yeah.
cup, basically.
That makes sense.
Right.
But
Then
even
what I'm
then, how
saying
would you
becomes
argue?
true,
Huh?
basically, right? The
No, it
fact is
doesn't.
that,
It still
yeah.
doesn't. It still
No,
doesn't, I
because
think so.
because the fact is that the uh,
Hmm.
bowl is broken, basically, right?
Okay. But
Right.
again,
From the
but okay, go ahead.
ball didn't exist at that point, but ball will exist, basically, right? So the
The world didn't exist, but the bowl
fact
existed.
has come before ball, basically, right? So from the fact that the ball has broken, the fact that ball is exists has come to life, basically, right?
I think
See,
when you're
it's
talking about
completely reversed, basically. Okay, maybe I
no, no, I
think we are
understand
losing the
it's
audience,
reversed.
right?
Exactly. I mean, we might be losing the audience at this
Yeah,
point. I think we might have already lost them.
yeah,
You
yeah,
see,
yeah.
but I
Okay,
think I
so
think when
sorry,
you're
guys.
talking
I
about,
think
yeah,
maybe we'll think through it. I think it
yeah.
to me, at least prima facie, it makes sense, right? Basically, if time is
You know,
reversed, because our concept of everything
even then,
fact comes after the
hmm,
fact, basically, right? After the thing has existed, after you have seen
exactly.
something, right? But if you reverse it, then you don't have any, you have all the memories of the future, and nothing of the past, basically, and everything changes pretty much, right?
Even if
That's the
it
thought,
okay,
at
so then
least.
you know,
It needs thought, more thought, basically. Yeah.
exactly. But what I'm trying to say is, if you'd argue for that, then that is a sort of a theistic argument. You're making a theistic argument. People argue for God using this logic, the logic that you've used. If you're saying that facts, or what you'd call truth, uh, I think we call it truth, right? Truth, truths exist or precedes existence. or whatever the thing
The
is actually.
facts precede.
The
Yeah,
facts.
facts
Yeah,
precede.
yeah. So in that case, what you're trying to say is that there is someone or something that has that knowledge of truth, which and that thing actually precedes the actual thing. So for example, if there's a horse, then you're saying that the fact that there is a horse precedes the existence of God, but for that fact to exist, there must be a vessel which contains that fact. That fact cannot exist in I don't know, nothingness. There
No,
must be
I think
something for
you're
that fact to
conflating
exist.
two different things, right? Just the thought that there is a horse, or just the thought that there's a unicorn, then the unicorn must exist, is different to what I'm saying, basically, right?
When you
I think
say
it's not
when
the
you s-
same.
when you
Yeah,
say
it's not
that
the
the
same.
fact, let me ask you this. Let's say A exists, right? A exists, and then there's a fact that that A exists, right? So there is one thing, A exists, and you're talking, and there's a different there, and you're talking about a different thing, which is the fact that A exists, right? So what's the difference between these two things?
Yeah, I mean, see, I'm saying the fact exists. Okay, let's not go there. It's gonna
Yeah,
go really messy,
exactly.
basically. I mean,
We might
I
get
have an
lost.
answer for it, but I think it's gonna be really, really messy if I go there. I think we should move
Yeah,
on,
let's
basically,
move on.
because we are already so far from. But we'll think about it, because this is a good problem to think about, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I think people should think about it,
Yeah.
but not that
Necessary
much though.
existence.
Yeah.
That they are produced by the necessary existence.
Okay, well, I think that's perfectly fine. And in fact, that wouldn't be incompatible with what I said. It would, in fact, bolster the point that there are necessary facts where those necessary facts depend on other necessary.
No, but the reason why it's different from what you said is you're saying that there's dependency relations. All right, so necessary facts. I'm not saying that the dependency relation is between a necessary fact and another necessary fact. I'm saying that the ultimate dependency relation is between a necessary fact and a necessary existence.
Right. Okay. So you have a necessary being,
Yeah.
and then and then you have certain necessary facts that depend on the necessary being.
Sure.
Do you have certain things that exist that depend on the necessary being?
Everything that exists depends on necessary being.
Right. Okay. So you have other things that exist necessarily and depend on the necessary being.
Independently.
No, I didn't say independently.
Oh, sorry.
I said they exist
Yeah.
necessarily, and
Sure.
they depend on the necessary
Sure.
being.
I think someone is asking for, link. Not quite sure. Should we take callers? I'm not quite sure. I think
I think we can take
someone is
on
telling.
callers.
Oh, well, all
I
right.
think we can take
We'll
on
make the
callers.
link.
Do you know who's this? Who's this
I don't know.
Samanish?
He's
Shaman.
saying. I think he's saying that he knows, and he's asking me to recognize him, but I don't recognize him, to be quite honest. Is he Advait Vedanta? Maybe.
No idea.
Seems like so. I think who's gonna ask, or maybe Vakas, but Vakas won't have this image. I don't know what image it is. It seems like a statue. Okay, I have made the link public, but
Yeah, this is a statue.
yeah,
Is it
let's
sea
talk
time?
about. Yeah, it could be sea time as well, right? Oh, but isn't sea time the same as Advait Vedanta, or they're different? Ha! All right, it's been a long time, I guess.
No
Oh,
idea.
okay. I think this guy I met at, I think. Okay, Bhaiya, I think you were here last time as well, I think, with Madin and
हाँ
I.
फिलो भाई नमस्कार गुड इवनिंग गुड नाइट जो भी सलाम वालेकुम जो भी है सब आपको
All right. आपसे मेरी last time भी बात हुई थी, right? See, this is an English stream, right? So we can't go in Hindi mode, and sorry about that. I think the same
नहीं, वो
same.
तो ठीक है मैं समझ गया लेकिन मैंने आपको पिछली बार ही बोला था कि आपकी रीच बढ़ेगी आप हिंदी में क्यों नहीं करते हैं आपकी रीच बढ़ेगी पब्लिक ज्यादा आएगी आपके पास
All right. What we'll do is we'll think about it, because otherwise we're gonna kill if we talk in Hindi on this stream. we're gonna kill both audience, right? Hindi as well as English, right?
हाँ।
So
नहीं,
maybe
मैं
we'll
आज आपका ज़्यादा टाइम लेने नहीं आया, मैं तुरंत चले जाऊँगा अभी इमीडिएट चले जाऊँगा। मैं सिर्फ़ ये बोल रहा हूँ मतलब आपको हिंदी उर्दू में मतलब कुछ दिक्कत है, कुछ वोकैब्युलरी की?
No, vocabulary. There's no problem in Hindi Urdu
हाँ, हिंदी
vocabulary.
उर्दू
The
में कोई
problem is
प्रॉब्लम नहीं है।
time.
हमारी हिंदी उर्दू बहुत
The problem is time.
बेहद उम्दा है वो।
We have done streams in yeah, we have done streams
आपने
in
तो आप
वहाँ
Hindi
अगर
पे
and
हिंदी
Urdu
देखी
as
नहीं
उर्दू
well,
क्या
में
but
हमारी?
करेंगे ना तो आपकी रीच बहुत बढ़ जाएगी। मैं पिछली बार भी ये बात बोला था। आप क्या नहीं बढ़ाना चाहते अपनी रीच को? आप नहीं चाहते कि मेरी बातें
हम
पब्लिक
बढ़ाना
ज़्यादा
चाहते हैं,
सुने?
पर आप हमारा आप चैनल को स्प्रेड करो, जहाँ जाओ आप लाइव स्ट्रीम्स में जाओ और आप हमारी स्ट्रीम्स को वो करो बेसिकली, है ना? बोलो कि ये इस सवाल का जवाब तो यहाँ पे दिया हुआ है। आप कोई भी सवाल कहीं पे भी किसी मुफ्ती की या किसी स्ट्रीम पे जाओगे ना, और कोई ऐसा सवाल दिखता है जो लोग स्ट्रगल करते हैं, उसका जवाब हमारे यहाँ मिल जाएगा आपको। आप लोगों को पॉइंट करो उनके यहाँ जाके कि अरे आप ये कैसा जवाब दे रहे हैं, ये तो यहाँ पे जवाब दिया हुआ है इस स्ट्रीम पे, तो हमारी रीच
बिल्कुल,
बढ़ेगी, फिर
बिल्कुल।
हमको
आप बहुत
मोटिवेशन मिलेगा,
आप
राइट?
जो इंग्लिश में बातें करते हैं ना, बहुत ज़बरदस्त बातें करते हैं। अगर यही इंग्लिश को खाली आप हिंदी में डब कर दें उर्दू में, तो तहलका मच जाए, कसम से तहलका मच जाए।
चलो, आपका
चलो
शुक्रिया
शुक्रिया
कि
बहुत
आप
बहुत
इतने हाँ इतने
शुक्रिया
इतने उम्दा वर्ड अल्फाज इस्तेमाल करने के लिए। पर है ना, हम कोशिश करते हैं नेक्स्ट टाइम जब भी मौका मिलेगा तो हम
हाँ हमारी कोशिश है विल ट्राई यार हम ज्यादा करें
मैं ना बार-बार चेक करते रहता हूँ। हर दिन कम से कम 2 बार चेक करता हूँ। फिलो भाई। तो पहली तो बात तो आते नहीं है और दूसरी बात अगर आते भी हैं तो फिर इंग्लिश लेके आ जाते हैं।
चलिए
असल में वो
कोशिश
थोड़ा सा
करेंगे, है
मेरा
ना?
मसला भी है हाँ,
हम्म।
थोड़ा सा मेरी अवेलेबिलिटी भी प्रॉब्लम हुई हुई
हाँ
है
नहीं,
तो वरना हम दोनों
मेरे
मिल
को
के करते हैं
मेरे को ख्याली के पीछे एक थोड़ा डंडा लेके भागना पड़ेगा थोड़ा टाइम के लिए।
अच्छा
हाँ,
केपी जी आप वही है ना वो पहले सिंह करके आते थे।
क्या करके आते थे
सिंह SINGH सिंह के नाम से आते थे।
नहीं नहीं मैंने कभी ये नाम
म-
यूज नहीं किया कहाँ
मनविंदर
पर
सिंह
नहीं भाई
मतलब
नहीं नहीं,
ना ना
मनविंदर सिंह अलग है भाई।
कौन है
वो
मनविंदर सिंह
मनविंदर सिंह
भाई
की जो आवाज है और मनविंदर सिंह की जो लॉजिक है ना बिल्कुल इन्हीं के जैसे, तो मेरे को ऐसा लगा कि वही है।
नहीं नहीं
हाँ
नहीं नहीं मैं
चलिए
नहीं
ठीक है
जानता
कोई
मैंने
बात।
सुना भी नहीं है कहाँ पर आए वो मैं सुनूंगा उनको भी अगर अच्छे आदमी है तो
अरे उनका जो लॉजिक है बिल्कुल मतलब आप ही की कॉपी हो, टू कॉपी आपकी। वो
अच्छा
जाते हैं
चलिए
अलग अलग, खास करके मुस्लिम चैनल में जाते हैं तो उनको तहलका मचा देते हैं, उनको आगे से बात ही नहीं आती, फिर वो उनको टीजिंग करने लगते हैं, उल्टे सीधा बोलने लगते हैं। मनविंदर सिंह करके है कोई।
अच्छा चले देखते
चलिए
हैं
हम सुनेंगे, है ना? ठीक है।
चलिए ठीक है, आप लगे
चलो
रहिए।
थैंक यू भैया
तो
चलिए
कभी तो मेरे को हिंदी में बोलने का मौका मिलेगा, उर्दू में कभी कीजिए।
ये देखो
बिल्कुल
आपने
बिल्कुल
पूरा हिंदी में बोला है यहाँ पे, राइट?
चलिए ठीक है, चलिए कीप
ठीक
इट
है,
अप।
चलिए
सॉरी फॉर
चलिए
आपको इंटरप्शन करने के लिए, सॉरी सर।
चलिए, कोई नहीं कोई नहीं, थैंक यू
सॉरी।
थैंक यू। आप जुड़े रहिए
चलिए
और स्प्रेड कीजिए। सबसे बड़ी चीज़ है, अगर आपको हिंदी ज़्यादा करवानी है, हिंदी उर्दू, इसको धड़ल्ले से आप इधर उधर स्प्रेड कीजिए, है ना?
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, जरूर जरूर
चलिए,
जरूर।
थैंक यू वेरी मच, है
थैंक
ना?
यू सर,
थैंक
थैंक यू।
यू। चलिए, ओके ओके, ऑल राइट, वेयर वर वी? ओके, मूविंग ऑन।
Sure.
Okay, right. So then what's wrong with that being true with the Trinity?
Okay, so
With
I don't see how.
with the Son
I
and the
don't-
Spirit existing necessarily, but being dependent on the Father.
Okay, so no, this is what we're saying is there's multiple contradictions in the idea of the Trinity, right? The first one is the proposition that the Jesus is God, which means
I think now they are talking about Trinity, which I don't think we should cover. Let this debate be between these guys, right?
Yeah. Is he a
Uh,
Christian?
I'm
Is
not
this
quite
guy a
sure.
Christian?
He's denying that. I think I heard him deny that fact. Basically,
Okay.
he's not a Christian.
Maybe
Basically,
maybe just he's arguing. I mean,
he's just
one
saying.
yeah.
I think.
He's
I mean,
just
I'll point because I heard a little bit ahead, and I know what his stance is. And he's saying because his response is because you think there is a contradiction, and he says there is no contradiction basically in it,
hmm,
right?
hmm,
Even
hmm.
if even though he's not a
If he
Christian,
doesn't believe it, yeah.
he thinks that there is a you can make a logical case for it to have a consistency basically, right? And even
Yeah.
I think so, you can somehow make it fix logically basically, even if it sounds absurd basically, right? you can have a trinity based on certain kind of, you can even have like multiple Hindu gods basically, thousands of gods basically. Certain of their characteristics you'll have to tweak basically, right? Infinite kind of a maybe not even infinite, maybe limited reign over certain things basically. A god can do some things, this god can handle some of these things and all those things basically. We have talked about it right earlier. I mean, it might sound a little less plausible, or less, not even plausible, less appealing rather, and yet it's possible because there's no contradiction basically. You can't find a logical contradiction in those kind of what do you call gods, concepts of god basically, right? So yeah, I mean, the same is true for Christianity as well, for Trinity as well, I think. So that's what he's saying, that he doesn't think there's a contradiction. Anyway, moving on. Do you want to add something,
Yeah,
Khalid?
right. No, nothing.
Means that he's a necessary being. Jesus must be a necessary being. And if he's a necessary
Okay,
being, at the same time as
let
being
me move
generated,
on.
begotten, and caused,
Let me move on to the next point, basically. And what's that next point? Basically, it's somewhere around here. Okay, let's listen.
and Jesus is not the true God. Jesus was created by the Father. He was generated by the Father. He is dependent on the Father. This is what the Muslim belief is.
Okay, so I didn't think that's right. So was 7-year-old Mohammed Hijab Mohammed Hijab?
In what sense?
Like, was the 7-year-old version of you Mohammed Hijab?
In what sense?
In the sense of being Mohammed Hijab.
It depends on how you define Mohammed Hijab. So if you define it by, is it mind or body? It's a mind or body issue. Is it a soul? So if for example,
I mean it in the sense where that you
Yeah,
mean if you ask,
yeah.
is Mohammed Hijab
Yeah.
here?
Do you even want to respond to this point, Kelly, or shall we just move on ahead?
I think let's move ahead. I think because otherwise we'll
Yeah,
be
I mean, this is that
we'll be stuck here. Yeah.
the ship of Theseus. That's what they're discussing.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
every cell of your body is
The
replaced
problem
every
of
7 years,
identity.
and problem of identity and all those things, right? I don't know. I mean, I don't think we should deal with that. I think
Yeah, I
our
guess this is a
audience.
very philosophically heavy discussion. I think and for some reason they suddenly are in a very short period of time they're touching a
Switching
lot of
from
topics,
one topic to the other,
topic to
right?
another. Suddenly, yeah.
Yeah,
When for me at least, I cannot make the sense or connection
heads
between
and
many of
tails
these.
of it.
Why are they moving from one point to another?
Yeah, I mean, it seems so all of sudden. Basically,
Yeah, all around they're all over the place. I don't know.
they're all over the place. Yeah. All right, move on. Let's see what the next point is.
When you ask, is it the same chair or is it a different chair? There's one object.
of God.
That idea.
Is Jesus a part of God?
There are different accounts on which.
What's
Okay, I think now I see the point of bringing this ship of Theseus thing. Basically, I think they're still stuck with the Trinity. He's trying to justify with the Trinity, right? Is the 7-year-old hijab same as hijab of now and all those things? I think he's trying to bolster his point for Trinity somehow. I don't know. We probably skipped a lot. I just wanted to give a heads up to the audience and those who want to see this video. Maybe I'll post a link to it somewhere in the description, basically, right? And I can post one here in the chat as well, so anyone who wants to see it can copy it and go through it, basically, as to what the whole conversation is, that the parts that we are actually skipping, basically, right? So that you don't miss it, right? At least if you want to listen to it, basically. What is that?
So
your strongest argument?
Okay, so I think the extended. I think there are a lot of arguments.
Analytical mind.
False than Christianity.
Tell me why. Use analytical mind and your ability to understand
I think it is one that's
your
way more
analytical
obviously
mind.
false than Christianity.
Tell me why. You said Islam is false. Give me a reason why Islam is false. Go on.
Sure. So
Your strongest argument.
Okay, so I think the extended, I think there are a lot of arguments. The extended
give me your best one.
digression in hell, where they describe, boiling off the skins of people.
All right, this seems like a good point to review, I think, right? Kelly?
Yeah, let's listen to that.
And then
Let's see
bringing them back
what
on
argument is he bringing in.
Yeah.
Right.
And then boiling it off repeatedly.
You sure?
This does not seem like the actions of a perfectly loving and
That's not not a divine that's not a creedal disproven argument. It's not an undercutter to the religion of Islam. So if you believe that hellfire is something which God wouldn't do, you don't even know what God is. You think that God is dependent. You think God is Jesus. You think God is a part of God and God at the same time.
Okay.
Come on.
What I was saying earlier was I think that I disagree with you that there's something.
I mean, this response from Hijab is preposterous, basically. I mean, he's responding to this guy, the guy with the specs. Okay, both of them are specs, but the curly-haired guy. He asked him why he doesn't. I mean, the question from Hijab was what he thinks is the strongest argument against Islam, right? And his response is, and I'm paraphrasing it. Why would most loving God burn people in hell forever and forever, whatever his thing was? And to that response, Hijab said something like that, something like, "You don't even believe in a God and whatever all those. What does that has to do?" I mean, he's talking about internal consistency, basically, right? That's the point he's trying to bring forth, and he's saying, you, according to your theology, or according to your belief in your God, basically your God is all loving, all merciful, right? Basically, I think maybe he wanted to, so I'm still manning his position. He wanted to say your God is most merciful, and still he's burning people in hell forever. Doesn't matter the cause, doesn't matter the reason, whether they disbelieved in him or not, right? Prayed to him or not. That's not that's definitionally not true. That's 2 + 2 = 5. And that's the argument. I mean, now you can't object to that argument. Hey, you don't believe in God and all those things, basically, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the audio issue. I didn't hear him saying that you don't even believe in God. I was thinking that what he said was that the kind of God you believe in is, I don't know. Maybe I heard it completely wrong.
Yeah, the kind of God you believe in, but even the kind of God you believe in doesn't matter here,
Doesn't
right?
matter, right? Yeah, exactly. No, but I think yeah, but
Let's hear it. If it wasn't clear, let's clear it. Let's hear it back again, because it's kind of it wasn't too clear to me as well.
Yeah.
To the religion of Islam. So if you believe that a creedal disproven, that's not that's a
Boiling it off repeatedly.
You sure?
This does not seem like the actions of a perfectly loving.
Let's run it at 1x, basically, or normal speed. If I increase the volume, does it make any difference? Kelly, let me know if it's a little bit louder now. Oh, maybe what I can do is I can increase the volume over from the screen. No, I don't think so. I can't do that. I can't do mic settings from here. If I increase the volume from my machine, does it increase the volume? Kelly, tell me.
That's not that's not a divine that's not a creedal disproven argument. It's not an undercutter to the religion of Islam. So if you believe that hellfire is something which God wouldn't do, you don't even know what God is. You think that God is dependent. You think God is Jesus. You think God is a part of God and God at the same time.
Okay.
Come on.
What I was saying earlier was I think that I
Right? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I think it seems to imply that this other guy believes in the Christian God.
Yeah, but then he presupposes that he's talking about the Christian God, and then
Right.
responding to
Yeah,
this
but your
answer
point
as
is
a Christian.
exactly now your point is valid. If Muhammad Hijab is, and he should understand that his point is from an internal consistency point of view. So if that is what he's arguing for, this yellow jacket guy, so then yeah, then it doesn't matter what this guy believes in, or whether he even believes in that kind of God or not, or whether he believes in God or not. So it doesn't matter because it's just about the internal consistency
Exactly,
or
exactly.
internal
And
state.
then probably if he says that, and he added that point that he's the most loving guy, God, right? And he says the most loving God cannot do eternal hell or burn people in hell forever, and that's a problem because that is inconsistent with the definitions, right, of most loving. Then at least Muhammad Hijab should have responded, you have got the definition of Islamic God wrong. Islamic God is not the most loving God. And then
Yeah,
he should have
okay.
said, yeah, he should have responded from that point on that you have got it. So I don't think this guy has said anything wrong or taken the Christian, even if he's taken the Christian perspective mistakenly, Christian God's perspective mistakenly, still put forth the proper argument, basically, right? I think so.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he said use the argument from unlimited punishment, but I think yeah he did argue from the very concept of hell and punishment.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, he missed that part, but I thought that let's give him that benefit of doubt that it's like eternal punishment, right?
Mm.
All right, let's move on.
I disagree with you that there's some explicit contradiction in the Trinity. Now, I don't affirm the Trinity. I'm not a Christian.
What's the
I don't
explicit
affirm-
contradiction of a God putting people in hellfire and كل ما نضجت جلودهم بدل لهم جلود غيرها
I don't think it's
ليذوقوا
an explicit contradiction. I also don't think here's another belief that's not.
So it's not a contradiction.
Yeah.
So it's not false then.
No,
So
no, that's absolutely wrong. There are lots of beliefs that are false, but that aren't a contradiction.
sure.
Error theory, for instance, which affirms that there
No,
are
no,
no
no.
mortal facts. I think error theory is
Okay.
absolutely
So
wrong.
how
but there's no
how would you
contradiction.
disprove it if not with the proof of contradiction? Give me another proof. How why is it wrong? In what
Right.
respect is it wrong?
So I'm what's called a phenomenal
Just pause it here.
conservative, where I think the way we figure out what's true is we look.
Pause it here. Y- I think a philosophically educated person should not ask that question. I don't know why is he even asking that question, unless there's a background to this discussion. He's saying that, and how would you disprove a position without showing internal inconsistency, or without showing an
Contradict.
internal contradiction?
You're right.
Just because a thing, and this yellow jacket guy rightly pointed out, and any person who hasn't even studied philosophy should, and he thought about it a little bit, he should know, or he should arrive at this very simple common sense point. Even if something is logically not inconsistent or have no logical contradiction, that does not prove that that thing is true. What it proves is that that thing is possible.
Right, right. Exactly.
And possible, being possible, and something being true is very different. And I think that's
Exactly.
very common sense. You don't have to be a philosopher to understand that, but at least
Exactly.
someone who's studied philosophy should be very aware of this fact, or the very of this
Exactly.
logic. Why would you even ask that question? And why would someone need to, and again, hijabs, he's placing the burden of proof on the yellow jacket guy. He has no burden of proof to disprove a Christian God. The Christian has a burden of proof to prove his God. Hijab has a burden of proof to prove his God.
His God,
Who,
basically, right?
yeah, and not just prove that his concept is not logically incoherent. That is not sufficient. That is
Right,
not,
exactly.
yeah, that is a necessary condition, not the sufficient
Not the
condition for his God
sufficient
to be true.
condition, right? I mean,
Yeah,
how many times we have to spell that out, basically, to Muhammad? I think
yeah,
for a guy who's doing, I think he's doing his PhD in philosophy, maybe.
yeah,
I don't
exactly,
know.
exactly. I guess, and I
And
think he's
how
done it. Why would he even ask that question? I
ask
have
that
no
question?
idea.
I think sometimes it baffles me, to be honest. To be quite
Right?
honest, just the
He's
kind of
asking that, yeah, he's asking that yellow jacket guy, How would you disprove it? And he tried to sort of uh, say, and he clearly said that, okay, so if it is logically or if it is logical consistent, then it is not false. Well, no. And the yellow jacket guy correctly said, no, that is not the case. It can still be
Exactly.
false even if it's logically consistent,
Consistent, right?
right? And I'll give
Yeah.
you, and for people who are still, maybe if there's still anyone listening to this, it's a very, let me tell you a very in a very common sense way, if I can explain this concept to you, and I think it is a very common sense point. Let's say Philo says that he has $1,000 in his bank account, right? Now I think that is logic, that it has no logical contradiction that Philo has $1,000 in his account. But does that mean that it's true? No. What it is what is the case is that it is possible that
It is
it
possible. Yeah.
he it is possible that he has $1,000 if Philo is telling the truth. But in case Philo is not telling the truth, it would be false if he's telling the truth, but
False,
it would still not be logically contradictory
contradictory, or inconsistent.
or
Both.
inconsistent.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Exactly.
something can be logically consistent yet not be true. We
And
have
yet
to
be false.
understand
Yeah.
that.
I mean
Yeah, and
that's
yet
yeah.
be false. So I mean, someone with the common sense and
Of
who
his
have given some
stature. Yeah.
reasonable thought to this concept should be aware of this. And someone who has done a PhD, or not even a PhD, someone who has studied philosophy should have this very basic understanding.
I think
I mean,
someone
there's
who
no
has
point in.
done bachelor's in philosophy basically
No,
should
I
be
have
able
not
to
Have you done
even
bachelor's
not
in
even
philosophy?
that is required. Not even
Exactly,
that
it's
is
not
required.
required. A student of philosophy should be able to understand this concept.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
And a
anyone who has
person who has
thought the
debated
problem.
and
Yeah.
a person who is debate whose life has whose whole life has gone by
Livelihood depends
debating
on it,
people.
basically.
Yeah,
Livelihood depends on it pretty much,
debating
right?
people, and still he's raising that point. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, 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 it's baffling, basically. I think, I don't know. All right, I'm not gonna go there because otherwise it's gonna be too much
Yeah,
of it, too much of criticism. Let him,
yeah.
let us spare him, basically.
Look at the ways that things seem, and then we have default trust in the way that things seem, unless there's a strong reason to doubt
Yeah,
it.
like Swinburne.
And
That's what he
so,
believes as well.
yeah, yeah, I'm a big Swinburne fan.
Yeah.
But
He called this. He called it something else. Actually, he called it the credulity, something else. Principle of credulity.
Principle of credulity.
Yeah,
I could
principle of
say.
credulity, isn't it? Yeah, principle of
I
credulity. Yeah,
suppose
that's
being
right.
hypothesis that
Yeah.
Jesus is God. To say.
You look a bit like him, but maybe a younger version.
But so I think, and absent relying on the principle that things are as they seem prior to being given a strong reason to doubt it, we would basically be in complete nihilism, skepticism land, where if you get down to any of our foundational beliefs, I think they'll just depend on things that are really obvious. And I find the notion that that it's wrong to torment people forever in arbitrarily horrible ways, that's immoral, that you shouldn't do that.
Sure, but
in your power to redeem them. I find that to be about as obvious as any ethical truth, I believe.
Yeah, but you're saying that. Here's the thing. For example, right, Swinburne in his book about God, I forget the name of the book, but he made an argument from base theory. I don't know if you've come across it. And he was basically making a probabilistic argument that God is probably the best explanation for the existence of the universe, etc. The point is that you haven't even attempted to do that. So you've just said something. You said that I believe in things are true unless I'm given. This is the principle of credulity that Swinburne believes in. You believe that things are true unless you are given explicit reason for them not to be true. Okay.
Hold on. That is not the principle that I. The principle is if something seems true, you have a reason.
Yeah, so okay, that's an important distinction. Fine. So if something seems true, unless you're given a reason not to believe it. Now here's the point. On what basis you look at, for example, eternal punishment in hellfire, and on what basis can you falsify that? Because if that's your strongest argument against Islam.
Why I don't know if it's my strongest there.
Okay, well, it seems like you mentioned it, so it must be very strong in your eyes. You must see that as a very strong argument.
I do, yeah.
Okay, but you can't explain to me what the tension is, why that makes it false.
Okay, so here's a very obvious ethical principle that we all accept in ordinary life. If you're going to cause others suffering, you need to have some justification for it. If I were to stab you in the eye, and you ask me why did I do that? I say I have no justification, I'm just doing it, right? Then it would be pretty clear that, it would be pretty clear that I was acting wrongly. And so then the question is, okay, so are there goods commensurate with, torturing people forever that make it justified to torture people forever and pursue those goods? So then the question is, okay, is there a plausible story on which there are such goods? So what are goods?
Yeah, so you've just made my argument for me in the sense that you said that you're basically saying that if you punish somebody for no crime, then that's a kind of injustice. That's basically what you're saying, right? And I'm saying I don't agree with that proposition. But for example, when the Quran talks about the boiling of the skin, actually, we're talking about the hypocrites, the religious hypocrites, the ones who posed as Muslims and then they pretended and they rejected they were infidels in that sense. They rejected the message of truth. And that's why it says, إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي الدَّرْكِ الْأَسْفَلِ مِنَ النَّارِ, that certainly the hypocrites, the religious hypocrites, are in the lower pits of the hellfire. كُلَّمَا نَضِجَتْ جُلُودُهُمْ بَدَّلْنَاهُمْ جُلُودًا غَيْرَهَا لِيَذُوقُوا الْعَذَابِ. That every time their skins fall off,
Oh, all right, Kelly. Sorry, I was speaking while my mic was mute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I was checking my internet. I thought something has gone wrong.
No, no, no. It was I was speaking, and then I said, "Oh, what the hell is happening?" Okay, so I wanted to check this whether this is true, that this thing where the skin is being burned off again and again and being replaced with the new skin, so that the pain is felt again and again and again. Is this only true for munafiqeens, basically the hypocrites, or it's true for all those who are in the? I'm not quite sure. I thought I'll
Now,
ask you whether that.
honestly, I cannot recall that specifically. Maybe it is for the Munafiqeen, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, see, it's whether it's for munafiqeen or for all of those in the hell. I think it always, seemed absurd to me of a God who could torture anybody in any which way. Why would he require to replace the skin again, again, again? Right? I mean, it seems as if somebody on the earth who knows that once skin is burnt off, there is no pain, right? Once your
Yeah,
skin is burnt off, all the neural sensors are burnt off, then the person who's being burnt doesn't feel pain. That information is being injected into this thing, right, into the verses of hell, basically, because now you want to replace, because you want them to feel more and more pain. But if your god is can do anything, basically, right, why would he even let them burn off? Okay, they are there is fire, and then they are not even burning, but they are injecting immense amount of pain. Or even if they are burning, basically they're still stuck to your skin, and you don't need to replace them. I mean, it can, in my thought at least, it can only come from someone who knows that once the skin is burnt off, you get third-degree burn or second-degree burn, then you don't feel pain, right?
right. So then, you believe that the Quran is from God, right? Because nobody knew at the time that once you burn off the skin, then you stop feeling that much of pain, right? So you
That's why
believe
you
the
have to
scientific.
replace. You have
That's
to
why you believe in
replace.
a, so you believe in a scientific miracle of the Quran, then,
Right.
right?
There's one more claim.
Right.
Yeah, damn it.
Yo, man, you've proven
Yeah.
Islam.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take the Shahada now. All right, I'm moving on.
we have replaced them with skins that are actually different to their skins so that they can taste the punishment. But in the same exact chapter that Allah says that, which is chapter 4, Allah also mentions, مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إِن شَكَرْتُمْ وَآمَنْتُمْ. That what would Allah do with your punishment if you are grateful and you are believers? So in other words, it's making it clear that there is a justification for the punishment, which is the ingratitude, the ultimate ingratitude of the human condition, or the human being, the disbeliever, and the ultimate disbelief of these are the two things which this verse indicates are the justifications for someone in hellfire forever. Now you might think that that's unfair in your mind, But then that's a subjective value judgment. That's an aesthetic value judgment. There's no way of proving that it's unfair.
It's not an aesthetic judgment.
So what is
Moral
it?
Judgment.
Yeah, based on what?
Well, based on the same things all moral judgments are based on, which is ultimate weight, some combination of seemings, some combination of direct seemings and efforts to make other beliefs that are based on seemings coherent.
Okay, it seems like your philosophy of logic and maths is much stronger than your ethics, because here you're not giving a good account of your ethical system.
I know way more about ethics than about philosophy of logic.
Okay, well, tell me now why. On what basis? First of all, you have to explain what is your ethical system.
Understand, the question you're asking me is the question you ask about any ethical claim that a person makes.
How can you ascertain that a claim is ethically or morally false? What's your standard?
So you look.
Can you hear me? Yeah,
you
Faisal,
look
can you
at
stop?
the things that are really ethically obvious.
I think we'll just discuss this point, and I think then we should close because honestly, I cannot hear this guy anymore. I'm not sure what he's even saying. Maybe it's only me, but I cannot understand what he's saying in too much detail. I
This
can hear, yeah,
the
the
other
blue
guy, right?
shirt guy.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
blue
But
shirt guy.
I can hear Mohammed Hijab clearly, but not what he's trying to say.
Yeah, I think
But
his mic
now,
is placed a little too far. See where
yeah,
he's holding his mic.
yeah, I guess so. Exactly. Yeah, it's it's in his lap. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like it's being used as something else. Okay, I don't want to go there.
yeah. But nevertheless, I mean, so again, Mohammed Hijab has started to argue something else. So the basic argument is very simple. It doesn't make any sense for a merciful God, for a Rahim Rahman God, for an all-loving God, to give eternal punishment to a human being for something that he has done in a temporary life, for something that can never have an impossible impact, right? So whatever he has done, let's say he has spent the worst kind of life that a human can ever spend, right? Let's say, I mean, just imagine the worst person you are aware of, and then just multiply that by the number of years that an average human lives. Even if that is the kind of human being that you're talking about, eternal punishment doesn't make sense, because eternal means that you're going to punish a person for a deed, for a limited crime. You're going to punish that person for an infinite time, right? So again, so it doesn't make logical sense, particularly if you claim that your God is just, and if your God is not only just but is also Rahman and Rahim. So from a
Rahman,
Rahman
right.
Rahim or merciful or an all-loving God concept, it does not make any sense that he would do that. And then it also doesn't make any sense if you claim that God is just. Now, if you say that no, it makes sense.
Yeah, you say
You know,
because you are given
yeah,
the eternal Jannah as well, and you
yeah, yeah,
already, Kelly already refuted that point in his
yeah,
earlier point that
right,
when you say you are Rahman and Rahim, basically, right?
right, right.
That's when it's already being refuted, basically, right? For
Exactly.
you to give him Jahannam forever, then you'll have to be an absolute evil as well, or absolute
Exactly.
malevolent as well, right? If you
Exactly.
have that kind of a
Yeah.
sifat in you, or the what do you call attribute in you, then an eternal hell would be justified.
All right.
Then and only
Just
then it would be
yeah.
justified.
Just because you have given eternal heaven to some people, that does not prove that you are now absolutely Rahman and Rahim or merciful. What it has proven is that you are a merciful God to these people. But if you believe that He has also given eternal hell to some people, then you'll also have to, logically speaking, and considering the basic common sense standard of justice, um, then it does not make any sense unless you call your God Rahman and Rahim as well as Zalim as well, or Zalim meaning unjust. So, so if you don't consider him unjust, then it does not make any sense. Now, why did I say that the common sense meaning of justice? Because one could argue, well, you see, what do you mean by justice? God, no, you cannot ask God for what He does, because Quran says that you cannot ask God about what He does, but He can ask
What he
everyone.
does is just basically, right?
Yeah.
And that's the
So now,
thing.
if you define exactly now, if you define whatever He does as justice, then now everything goes out of the window,
I,
because
I think,
now
yeah.
now you're in a very very dangerous place.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
And Kelly, there is
yeah,
sorry to interrupt
yeah.
you. There is a new theory going on, and this is a new argument going on in
Mm,
philosophical journals probably, and it's recently come out. I don't know who's published it basically.
mhm.
And the theory is, I don't know if you have heard about Dostoevsky,
No,
right?
no,
I'm
no.
pretty sure
I'm not sure.
you haven't.
No, no.
So he was this Russian novel writer, and he wrote more of like he was probably existentialist. Maybe I'm not sure, right? But he lived around early part of the 19th century or something like that, around the time of Nietzsche, probably, right? When was Nietzsche? 20th century, maybe, right? I might be wrong with these things, but he was an existentialist, right? And he wrote this. One of his brother Karamazov was his novel, and he said one of the quote became very famous, that if God does not exist, then everything is permitted or something like that, and everything is allowed, right? Or something like
Mhm.
that, right? And the new theory that is being coined is that if God exists, then
Then
everything is permitted. And why? And it's very they have very good arguments for it
yeah.
basically, and
No, no,
you
no.
should.
You're right. It's something similar to what I thought about, because I was thinking about, but basically I was thinking about the argument that theists, or I was often seen Muslims giving that argument. They have seen them saying that and often when they're discussing morality, and the problem with atheists, with the morality that an atheist would face, and they would argue that just if God doesn't exist, then morality doesn't exist. Because what if a person is immensely powerful, and he has great power and nobody can catch him? Then do you think that it would be okay for him to do whatever he wants? Now,
Yeah, I mean,
strangely, you see, the response that I've thought is, you know what you're talking about? You're
no,
actually
I
talking
think
about
they don't even
someone like,
think through it. Yeah.
exactly. They've not thought about what they're trapping themselves. What they're talking about is someone like God,
No, I
and
think you have to make them think through this, right?
exactly, you think
Well,
exactly what I'm going to.
let's
Yeah,
say
what the
let's say
thing is,
Hitler. Let's say
exactly.
Hitler.
Yeah,
If Hitler had won Russia and
yeah,
Hungary, and then would he have done all those evil things? Would you call him evil? They would say
mm,
yes. Had he won UK and all the whole of Europe, East and West, would you even call him still an evil person? Yes. What about whole of Europe and Asia? Would you still call? Now, suppose he reigns over the whole earth, and from that
yeah,
point on, you take him on to okay. What about you?
exactly.
What's your thought about the cosmic God?
Yeah. I mean,
That's
the point is
I
this.
think
Yeah,
they don't put 1 plus 1, right? They just
exactly.
don't do that.
Exactly. They don't realize that they're speaking of someone, uh, if not exactly like God, but someone actually their logic would apply to God, and exactly that is what they believe about God. This is what
Right.
Quran says, that you
And,
cannot ask what God does. You cannot ask why or what God does, but He can ask everyone, which means that whatever God does, you cannot. He is the ultimate being who can do whatever he wants. He has that ultimate power, which they are, although they're not talking about that kind of power, that level of power, but it's just an extension of that same idea.
right.
They
I
are
mean,
saying, they are
the
asking us. Yeah,
the more
exactly.
power you have, it's the worse
Yeah,
than what it is. Basically, I
worse
mean,
than what it is.
if you
Exactly.
have limited, I mean, Hitler could be limited in his power. That's why he was defeated.
Exactly.
You just can't
Exactly.
defeat a bad god. I mean, a malevolent
Exactly.
god. Just can't do
Exactly.
anything.
I mean, yeah. So
Just
I think our
don't
response
do
should be
anything.
whenever
I think
someone.
here
Yeah.
he talks about it. I think if we move probably 2 3 more minutes, I think he'll talk about
Uh-huh.
that. He believes
This
in
concept.
huh?
This concept about
Yeah, he believes in
morality and all.
divine command theory, and he believes it deep, pretty
Who?
much. That's what he
Mohammed
says.
Hijab?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
we
I
should
think,
hear
yeah, he
that
would have.
part. I think we should hear that part.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, but I think we still have
If
a
you
few
if you
points
want if you want to finish it, then
because
maybe we
yeah,
can.
yeah, because I want to finish this point first. Because so what we just discussed is if I wasn't clear enough, or maybe someone maybe my English wasn't clear. What we're saying is that you've often heard theists arguing that if an atheist there's no morality if there is no God, and they would often argue this in this way, in this manner. They'd say, why do you let's imagine a person who is immensely powerful, an immensely powerful king who nobody can touch, or nobody can harm. What incentive would he have to do the right thing? Now, that's a hypothetical situation, first of all, because even a king relies on his subordinates to have to exercise that power. A human king relies on other humans who work under him to exercise that power. Those subordinates rely on their
Their
subordinates to
subordinates,
exercise that
basically. And
power.
it goes down to the
Those
population
exactly
pretty much.
to the
Yeah.
population, and so the king relies. You can say that he's immensely powerful, but in a way, you can never say that he's completely independent of them. He relies on everyone else, and everyone else relies on everyone else in a way. So
Yeah,
you
right.
you can give me no example of a human being who has no reliance on anyone else. Okay, so
And it
so
is
your
absolutely
concept
powerful at the
is
same time.
absolutely
Not
powerful.
absolutely.
Exactly.
Not even absolutely. It's
Not even
immensely
absolutely. Immensely,
immensely
yeah,
powerful.
immensely. So even you cannot even give me that, but understand that there are people and there are situations where people are very powerful and they have abused that power. But the kind of concept that they are talking about is even more powerful than that. So that's what, for the first thing that we point out is it's a hypothetical concept which doesn't exist because our interests are linked with other humans in many ways. So it is almost always it's better to cooperate with other human beings, right? So that is
Exactly.
one sense. Now the
Exactly.
second major point is at the concept that they are talking about would actually apply to God. He is that immensely powerful being who is completely independent of his creation or who is not reliant on anyone else, and he has power over everything. Now, what incentive does he have to act morally, to not lie to his creation, to not cause immense or infinite suffering on every human that he creates? Every, not just the bad ones, not just the munafiqeen,
And for you, if you
also the
disagree with
Muslims and
it, and if you
exactly.
disagree with it, then
Yeah.
at least 70% of the population that he has created will burn in hellfire. He'll punish them and torture them to no cease, basically. I mean, it to no end is the point,
To know
basically.
it.
I'm trying to,
Yeah,
yeah, to no end, basically, right?
exactly.
So if you think that he can't do it, yes, he will do it. So you can't deny that fact that he can't do it. He's just good by his nature.
Exactly.
No,
No. You have no idea. That is just a claim again that he is
right?
good. And number one, even if you call him good, what do you even mean by that?
Exactly, right?
What do you mean
What
by
do you
good?
mean? What do you mean
What do you
by?
mean when you say that he is good?
I mean,
You have no idea.
all you know is
No
he could be just lying to you
idea. Yeah,
in all his books, basically. I mean,
exactly.
he said he'll preserve all his books or one of his books or some of his books. Which books? What
Yeah.
verses? All these questions will spring up pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Left and right.
Yeah. So yeah. So
Shall we
Bilal.
close?
Yeah, yeah. We just closed, but I think I just see the last three comments that Bilal has given. Bilal 535 has given.
Yeah, Bilal, if you want to jump in
I
and
think
say hi.
let's just the second last comment. I think that would be relevant. You think really haven't heard of Dostoevsky? No, I have not. I mean, if you're making,
No,
you're
no,
judging me. I guess I haven't. Philo has.
it's
So
okay.
yeah,
It's
honestly, I
okay.
haven't.
I think you should,
But but
if
I
you
you
get a
know what?
chance, Charlie.
I might even have read some concepts in different articles because I'm very bad at memorizing names. I don't recall
You might
names. I'm
have.
not able to.
I
Yeah.
think a couple of things from him. Crime. I think is crime and punishment by him. I think it is, and Brother Karamazov. These are two works
Okay.
that are pretty famous, and
Okay.
I think it's a must-read kind of a thing. It's
Right.
in a sense philosophy, but
Mm-hmm.
it's very deep existentialism basically. So
Mm-hmm.
if you
No,
like
no, I
philosophy,
would.
like this, yeah,
I would. I would. I mean,
very
basically, I try to read philosophical concepts in as summarized manner as as I can.
right,
I
right.
don't. I don't like long form and very long
Yeah, don't
books
don't
on
don't
philosophy.
read don't read Tolstoy. I
Okay.
think you'll be in bad shape. I think
Yeah.
those are like
Yeah.
magnum opus, but no,
Yeah.
I think Anna Karenina is probably 1,000 pages, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
Peace
I
and
mean,
War is like
yeah.
1,300 pages.
No, 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 I'm not
My
reading those
patience
books.
runs
Sorry.
thin. My
I'm not
patience
spending.
runs. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm not reading those books. Sorry.
Yeah, no, no, not at all. Not enough time.
So, yeah.
Anyway,
So
what we gonna do, Khali? I think he
just
does talk about his position as being divine command
no, no, but
theorist.
later
Yeah,
before that, let
we'll
me
talk
read
about
with
that at the
other
next
comments
time.
that Bilal has given.
Mm.
I'm going to go through them because we did mention, we discussed a few things. So he mentioned they try to justify that by saying that God is infinite and therefore it's justified, and that God knows what you would do if you live forever. I think he has mentioned 2 points in this comment. One is that God is infinite. So is he trying to say that I've heard these Muslims arguing that any crime that you commit against God, and God being an infinite entity, would mean that the punishment would be infinite as well. That is one point, if he's saying that. And then the second point is that it is justified because God knows what you would do if you lived forever. Now, this is a separate point. These two things are separate. If you're arguing, including both
And
of
yeah,
these
he's
points in your
saying two ways they can solve this
yeah,
objection,
yeah.
basically, in a
Okay, so
sense.
the first one being that God is an infinite entity, and any crime against God deserves infinite punishment. Okay, the problem with that is, how do you define the word crime? What do you mean crime against God? You see, when there's a crime, always you have to understand, when there's a crime, there is always a victim or a potential victim, at least a potential victim. Okay, you have to understand that. If you commit a crime against someone, then there is always a potential or an actual victim. If there is no potential or actual victim, what's the crime? Who's the crime against? If there is no possibility of harm
Yeah, that's
to
what I
the
was coming
victim,
at. As to
right?
actually,
If there is
actually,
no
actually,
possibility of harm to
punishment
the
is
victim,
based on how much
exactly.
harm you have caused, basically.
Exactly. It's not about, and I've often seen
It's not
this
about
straw man
resisting
from theists.
of a
I've
kind.
often seen, often seen this straw man from the theists and Muslims particularly, that it's not about how much time you have taken to commit that crime. It's about the impact. They say that it's about who you're committing that crime against. It's not about who you're committing that crime against. It's about the impact of that crime or
Or
the
the harm you
potential
have
impact.
caused, basically,
Exactly.
right?
And not just the impact itself, the potential impact that similar crimes could have.
Exactly.
Because it's not just, remember, the punishment of a crime is not just to punish or to sort of, I don't know, to retaliate against that criminal. It's also, there are other reasons for that which are more important. It's not just to punish
It's
that
to
person or to,
safeguard the society,
exactly, it's to safeguard society. How? By deterring such behavior so that other
right?
people would know that if they would do similar things, they would have to face these consequences. So it's not about punishing that very person. Punishing that very person is not the ultimate goal. It's never the ultimate goal. If you think about it, it's never the ultimate goal. If you punish that person, you're actually trying to deter other people from committing similar crimes.
Right.
You are trying to, maybe in certain punishments are sort of rehabilitative. So maybe if you are keeping that person in a prison, and that is a rehabilitative prison, then you're basically rehabilitating that person so that maybe he can become a part of a society later on and become a more productive person rather than uh, continue to harm other people. The
Harm
third
other
one is
people.
restricting. that person from committing, the very same person from committing similar crimes. So you punish
Exactly.
that person by putting them in a prison so that they cannot continue to do similar acts. The very same person does not continue to do similar acts in the society by harming others and ultimately harming others. So these are the reasons. So punishment is never the ultimate goal.
Right.
It's not the end.
Kelly,
It's a
just
means to achieve something.
let
Yeah.
me point one objection to this thing, and then
Okay.
the solution to it as well, basically.
Okay.
And then they'll say, and this brings to the second point by Bilal, that it could be justified because they would have kept
Yeah,
disbelieving
yeah, that's exactly.
forever,
Yeah.
right? Forever, and
Yeah.
that's why they.
Yeah, yeah.
And that point does not work here in terms of the punishment that is given, basically, because it won't harm anybody, basically, right? It's not harming
Exactly.
anybody. I mean, the point
Exactly.
they try to make it, because if you disbelieve, then it will cause others to start disbelieving
Yeah.
in
That
it
doesn't
as
make
well.
any sense.
Now it doesn't make any sense because they're already in hell, right? So you give a limited hell, and then done, because now you can't
Yeah.
make anybody disbelieve who was already disbelieved, right? So
Yeah.
you can't make the society worse from that point on. So that objection is gone pretty much from that point on.
Even yeah, even arguing that you cause someone to disbelieve is a completely logical argument. Because think about it.
Yeah, I mean,
What they're
I
yeah,
totally agree.
what
Yeah,
exactly what they're actually saying is that, for example, there's a person A and there's a person B. Person A is the criminal, right? Like he's the one causing the other person B to not believe. Well, there are only two possibilities. Number one, the person B was uh, he was going, if A had not caused B to disbelieve, then B would have gone to heaven,
heaven.
right? And the other possibility is that whether or not A had caused him to disbelieve, he would have gone to hell anyways. So these are the only two possibilities. What you're saying is that either A could actually impact his afterlife, B's afterlife, or he could not. Now, if you're saying that he couldn't, I think that would make more sense. But if he couldn't, and logically speaking, he should not be able to, because if you're saying that another person can impact the afterlife of another, then again you're saying that B is going to be facing consequences for something that was not in his control, right? So it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
uh,
I mean, then you're saying that B couldn't have caused that. I mean, yes, he shouldn't be. A should be given punishment, basically, because
exactly.
it was A
he's
who
being
caused.
he's punished for A's crimes,
Yeah.
right? How can you do that? Yeah,
Yeah.
so it doesn't make any sense. Now if you're saying, so that is these are two, this is what we're talking about. It doesn't make any sense that a person can harm another by making him, causing him to disbelieve. That should not be possible, because you know what, from a theological perspective, a person would be either sincere or not sincere. Now a sincere person who doesn't even believe in Islam, according to, if I spoke about this from an Islamic perspective, there's a concept of Ahl al-Fatrat. Now, I've often heard Muslims argue, and it makes sense. They have argued that even if a person has heard of Islam, let's say that person lives in West, and he has heard of Islam, but he has heard it in a very negative light, right? He has already always heard negative about Islam, and that's why he never accepts Islam. That person would still go to heaven because he is from the Ahl al-Fatrat, because he never actually got the true message of Islam. Okay? So, what that means is, it doesn't matter whether he believed or not believed. What mattered was what was his natural state, right? Whether he was a sincere person or not. The question is whether he would have believed had he been given that message. Actually, that is what matters, right? So now, in that, if you consider that scenario and that logic, now it doesn't make any sense that a person can impact another person's beliefs. It shouldn't,
Right.
or not. It's basically the afterlife,
Right.
because that person, it's up to that person's own, um, nature or character, that whether he would have believed, given everything was ideal, right? He would have received that message in a very ideal situation, right? Everything, he would have understood everything. If that had been the case, then he would have believed. If that is the kind of person he is, then it doesn't matter whether he actually believes or not. That is what you have to understand. And therefore,
Right, right.
a therefore a person can never impact, from a theological perspective, from an Islamic perspective, it shouldn't make any sense that a person has impacted another person's afterlife. So that
Afterlife,
it
right.
should be out of question. That should
Exactly.
not that should be out of
Not
question.
be in the equation at all.
That should not be in the equation at all. So the only harm now, the only crime, or the victim of a crime, that this person, and if you think about it, the biggest punishment in Islam is for not for committing any thing against another person, but rather it's shirk.
Shirk, right.
Now, who, if you say that shirk is a crime against God, you know, and as we've already pointed out, crime, in case of a crime, there is a victim or a potential victim. Are you saying God is the victim or the potential victim of something, of a human act? No, you cannot say that, because God can
Right.
never be the victim.
Then
God cannot be
you'll
harmed.
belittle
Exactly.
God, basically.
Exactly, exactly. So are you saying God can be harmed by a human's actions? No, right? So which means that whatever he did,
Harmed or even hurt, basically,
hurt. Yeah.
emotionally or
No,
in
no,
whatever
harm
way,
meaning
basically.
it can be an emotional harm as well. So
Yeah, yeah, that's what
basically,
I'm saying. I'm a
yeah,
emotion. It's gonna be an emotional harm, of course, not
yeah,
physical, right? You can't
right,
you
right,
can't go
right,
for physical
right.
harm at
So it
all.
doesn't make any sense from that perspective that that God would be harmed by a human's action. So if you think about it, it's nothing. It's God randomly choosing certain acts that he would punish humans for, and there are certain acts that he has chosen, that he will reward people for.
Yeah, reward people for
Yeah.
basically. Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
nothing.
And
It's
it's
just
arbitrary. It's
it's
arbitrary, basically.
arbitrary. It's just like an arbitrary rules, a set of rules which are there in any kind of game that we play. So God has
Yeah.
chosen those rules arbitrarily. He has chosen that shirk is
I
the
mean,
biggest one.
to bolster what Khali is saying, I'll say you could conceive of a God, basically, and this is because you just think because it's written in the Quran or some other religious scripture, then that's why it has to be true. But you can equally conceive of a God who will just reward people who have read these books, basically, right? Let's say somebody has read the book Quran and dismissed that book based on his intellect. Some God, even let's say if it happens to be Allah, would reward those people heaven because they thought through those problems and rejected that book, saying that, oh,
Yeah.
how can all intelligent God could come up with such absurd things, basically, right?
All right.
Perfectly logical, perfectly fine,
You
and
could
it's
conceive
still
of God.
arbitrary. It's still
Alarm.
arbitrary though.
Uh, I mean, you could
So that's
conceive
the
of a
point.
God. You in fact, if you think about a God, who's all merciful and all good, I think the first idea that would come to your mind is that a God should have placed everyone in heaven from the get go. There is no point in putting humans to any sort of risk, anyways, because God already has infinite knowledge. Even if He wanted to uh, place people based on what they would do or how they would act, then He already knows what everyone deserves. So just place them directly to where they are. In fact, He doesn't. People don't even think about this. You know, when they say that they deserve this punishment or not. Tell me, who decides how much punishment a person deserves? Who decides that? Is there an uncreated absolute standard somewhere, which according to which God decides that, okay, now based on this standard that God did not create, or God did not decide, you deserve this much punishment? Do thieves believe that? No. God decides how much punishment an act deserves or attracts, right? So now think about it. God could have decided to not punish anyone for shirk, or he could have decided to have a very tiny punishment for shirk. Then what's, I mean, so now the question is, why would God decide to punish anyone for anything at all?
Yeah, exactly. That's the first thing. I mean, that refutes the whole notion of merciful, basically.
Exactly.
You know, what is it?
People, yeah, people often forget. I mean, they say that, oh no, God, in order to be just, he must do this. No, there is no compulsion on God, because God is the one who has set the standards of justice. He has set the standards of right and wrong. He has set us the standard of punishment and reward. So he could have decided that everyone who actually, he could have decided to not declare anything as wrong. And he could have said, okay, everyone deserves heaven. Go to heaven. Now, if you
Exactly.
think that no, no, that would be completely wrong, then God could have decided that I'll only create people who deserve heaven. I'll not create anyone who deserves hell. Why do you think He's compelled to create people who deserve hell? Right? There is no compulsion on God to do something like that. And a
Exactly.
merciful God and all-loving God is the kind of God from whom we would expect that He would only create people who are heaven, who deserve heaven. I think that makes total
And
sense.
if your response to that is that he wanted to test, and because didn't want to let people go without test, I mean, this is a bad response because
That's a bad response.
it's up to him. It brings
Exactly.
back to the same problem, basically. Why would
Exactly.
he create a test? I mean,
What's the
that's the
point of a
same
test?
thing. What's the
What's
point
the
of the
point
test?
of a
Because you
test? He
know
already
already
knows
who's
everything.
gonna, yeah,
He already
already
knows
you already
everything.
know that, yeah,
Yeah.
because test is created for those where there is an uncertainty. And
Exactly.
usually these muftis and already apologists say, no, 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 but even if a teacher knows that this kid will pass, they'll still have to have him sit in the test, right?
Yeah. Because teacher's knowledge
And
is,
they,
is imperfect.
yeah, teacher's knowledge is imperfect, and there are cases where you think, and they always give an example that they think this student will fail and fail and fail,
Yeah.
but there might be some
Yeah. They
kind
get
of,
good marks.
he
Yeah.
just, yeah, he
No,
just
but even
studied
if you ask the
hard
teacher,
in,
how exactly can the teacher give the exact rank and percentage that a person would get? No, the
no,
student would
right,
get. They
exactly,
wouldn't. That's
they
why
won't.
this exam exists. That they'll actually they have actual percentage comes up.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So many problems with that. I don't think our muftis and apologists think through all these things. I think
Exactly, and
these
yeah, and
these
the next,
responses, they have
yeah,
pre-cooked responses for simplistic
right,
minds, basically, and not thought through all these.
right,
And Bilal has
exactly,
another comment here, and if he knows if we
yeah.
live
And I was
forever,
going to
that he
bring
would
up this
fail
point.
or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. Why
Based on,
profess them?
his
Yeah.
earlier
Yeah.
point, because he
Yeah.
said
We did say.
in his earlier comment, he asked the question that maybe they could respond by saying that God knew what we would do if we lived forever, right? And that is a response of Bilal. What you just said is a response to that, and I think, and that is a very valid response. If the knowledge, if the punishment and reward are based on God's knowledge of what they would have done and had they lived forever, then what is the whole entire point of testing them at all? Because anyways, you are punishing them on the basis of your own knowledge. So your point that, oh, I'm testing you for the sake of your own satisfaction, that, oh, you would know that you deserve this punishment. But even then, a person who's in hell could say that, I don't deserve unlimited punishment. But then God would say, no, you deserve unlimited punishment, because had you lived forever, you would have committed those sins again. He would say, but I have not committed that. Now you're just saying that because you have that knowledge. Then why would you even give us this test, man? Just from the very get go, you should have just started punishing people and putting people to heaven. So it doesn't make any,
Exactly. Right.
that again, that this logic doesn't make any sense. And you know what?
Exactly. There's another.
I have There's another
Mhm.
point which do you remember? I just a few days ago I mentioned a point to you, and
Right, right. Yeah,
some
yeah,
people
we
might
did talk about
disagree
that.
with that. But there's another issue with this. You see, free will is very important concept in any religion which has the concept of hell and heaven, right? So now understand what is free will. Free will is basically an indeterministic cause. Indeterministic means you cannot determine the outcome before it actually happens. Okay? It is impossible. Because if you can actually know without it actually happening, if you can know the outcome without that thing actually happening, that means that you already have a set mechanism of how it operates and how it works. And based on that, you can say, okay, for example, if you'll put in certain chemicals together, you'll get this specific compound. So you're able to predict that because you know that this is how it behaves and this is how it this mechanism works. But free will does not work like that. It is an indeterministic cause by definition.
By
Because if you say
definition, basically,
by
right?
definition, because if you say that it is not indeterministic, rather it is deterministic, then you believe in deterministic worldview, not free will. So it's the opposite of determinism. Therefore, it is by definition indeterministic. Now, if there is no way to determine what the outcome of a specific free will exercise of free will would be, then there is no way to know the outcome before it actually happens. Now, think about God's knowledge of humans' actions. Now, I think if we imagine that God knows what we do, or whether we deserve hell or heaven, is based on the fact that what we actually did in this universe or in this life is already in God's knowledge, because He's a timeless entity and He knows what we do. But the question is about now, not about what we have actually done in our lives, rather what we would have done if we had lived a few years longer, or maybe for an infinite time.
Infinite
The
life,
question is,
basically.
yeah, the point is this: if our free wills are indeterministic, then God should have no way to actually know what we would have done, because He can know what we actually did in our lives, because He is a timeless entity and He can see us from the timeless realm. So therefore, for Him, the past, present, and future all exist at the same time. But the past, present, and future that actually happens, that's what we're talking about. If you say that God also knows what we would have done, that means that there's a set formula of how our will works or what we would do, which means that there is a
We don't have a
precursor
free
there.
will. Yeah, we
We
don't
don't have
have a
free will,
free will.
because there is something that God knows that determines what we'll do, which means that either we don't have free will, or God cannot possibly have knowledge of what we would do if we had lived for a few years longer, or maybe for
Yeah,
infinite
or
amount of
or
time.
even for cases where we would have acted differently, basically, right? Because
Exactly,
those
exactly, and yeah,
different
yeah, yeah,
acts
yeah.
never happened, basically.
Exactly. Even if we had been in a different setting, maybe in a different, we had been born and brought up in a different environment, how we would act, God doesn't know. He cannot possibly know how we would act, or what sort of deeds would we do in that scenario. So again, so I mean, it doesn't make any sense from that angle as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, this argument hinges on that point, basically, that free will is definitionally something that is,
Indeterministic.
yeah, absolutely random, basically. Yeah,
Yeah,
someone who's acting on free will take an action that is completely random, unbeknown to anybody,
and Benos,
uh, to anybody else, basically, right? Even God,
even
because
God.
if that happens, that it doesn't remain proper free will. But then again, I think our contention is very strongly hinges on this definition, right? and
Yeah,
people might just argue this, attack on this definition, right?
yeah,
So
they might argue, but again, then what are they even
then they'll
talking
have to,
about?
yeah, they'll say, yeah. Even, I mean, I'll add to this that
Then yeah,
even if somebody says that no, we don't have absolute free will, I don't think Ali and I are talking about that
yeah.
thing. I think Mufti Yasir has
Then
responded to
yeah,
that
yeah.
sometime, but that's not something
Already
we
pointed out
talk
the
about.
problem with that statement.
Where that problem,
There's no absolute free will. What does that even mean? Absolute free will.
right. So we are not talking about that. We are talking about a very separate point, which is the definition, by the definition of free will itself.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll let you
Anyways,
think
yeah,
through it. Yeah, we'll let you think through it. And Kelly, I think let's end it over here.
yeah. Let's end
He
it.
does talk about, yeah, he does talk about later on about this. He's a divine theorist, divine command theorist, basically, right? So I think what we already probably addressed those points, that I mean, whatever he'll do, whatever God says, basically, and that'll become. So I think then he can't say that, oh, okay, my morality is objective and all those things. But we'll let it be for now, and we'll close the stream. We thought, at least we had decided that we'll run it for 1.5 hours or so. But then I think we got into our groove, and it ran
Yeah.
past that as well. But it was
Mm.
good. Yeah, I think it's been a long time since we did a stream, so we had to do it anyways. I think we only have only one audience member is still stuck with it. I think us, and I think that's Bilal. So thank you, Bilal, and whoever else just joined. So thank you, guys. If you get a chance, and whenever you go to other streams, if you don't go to other streams and talk to guys, maybe just start going and start promoting our channel, and tell them, oh, okay, you just address this problem to some guy over there, but the answer to that is already present in on Philo Sapiens channel, on so that people get to hear, and at least more and more people start to join and hear these arguments. I think, if you think that there is a value in what we present over here, right? I think we present a lot of food for thought. If you think there are problems in our analysis or anything, do at least comment on the comment section, or even the chat section and stuff. And if you think you are capable to support us, you can support us on Patreon, and you'll see on the banner, you can see the links. We also have an English channel, which is at the rate of Unveiling Faith, which has been silent for a long time, but we want to revive and do our English streams over there. So you can support us on Patreon at Patreon, Philosapiens, right? Patreon.com/Philosapiens, or buymeacoffee.com at Philosapiens, or super chats, super stickers, or what have you on YouTube, or any other way, whatever way you want to support. But the best is, start commenting, start spreading the word, keep liking, and keep joining the streams. With that, thank you all. Thanks to Khali as well for joining. All right. Bye for now.